You're listening to the Business Per Usual Show, a podcast for innovative entrepreneurs and professionals who want to stay ahead of the curve. I'm your host, Michelle Taylor, founder of a marketing and advertising agency specializing in crafting dynamic brands and scaling businesses. Ashley, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. And for everyone listening, this is Ashley Vorhees. She is the executive director at CASA of Kern County in California. We had gotten a chance to work together a few years ago when she was with another nonprofit. I am so excited for us to reconnect today and just learn more about how she got to where she is and her experience stepping into an executive director role for the first time. So excited to have you on today, Ashley.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm excited to be here and to share my journey with your listeners. It's been a wonderful and humbling experience. Anything that I can do to encourage and uplift somebody who may be experiencing any kind of challenges, definitely here just to excited to talk with you.
I can't wait. So I'm just going to jump right in. If you can tell us about how you find yourself in the position with the organization that you're at today, just your journey through the nonprofit world.
Yeah, so my journey in the not-for-profit world started back in 2009. I was looking for job change. The advertising agency that I was working with was closing its doors, and I needed to make a shift. The American Heart Association welcomed me with open arms. That's where it all started, and it was a great experience. And then from there, I went over to Catholic Charities, serving our community through basic needs. And that was a really neat opportunity. I was the site director there, and I started to work with a local team on site and provide guidance. But we did have an executive director that worked up north. And so after 5 years of serving in social services, I jumped on over to Girl Scouts, which is where I got to meet you. I served there in a leadership capacity as their vice president of communications and development. That was a really neat experience. And again, having a small team underneath me to work with the council and provide a leadership experience for girls throughout Kern County. And then in May, or I guess early part of 2023, I got a call from a friend who sat on the board of Kern County and said, "Hey, I think you'd be amazing at this job. We'd love to talk with you if that's something you're interested in." The way I always look at it is I will entertain an idea because at the end of the day, I can always say no, but I'd hate to miss out on an opportunity that was meant for me. And so I submitted my resume and went the whole way through. And I just prayed that if it was meant for me, that the doors would continue to open. And here I am almost 2 years later into this role. And it's just been, as I mentioned earlier, a very humbling and honoring experience to serve as the executive director here at CASA.
I loved what you said that you'll entertain everything and kind of keeping your mind open to possibilities. So I think it's really interesting right now. It seems like I see so much on LinkedIn, and when I'm talking to colleagues and past clients, a lot of people right now are making, whether it's big shifts in their career, or making that big next step. What made you feel ready to really step into, it definitely is a progression from where you were at, but it is, such a step to step into an ED role. So what was it, whether it was like that confirmation that you felt, wow, this is something I really want to do and feel interested in? What made you, if someone's contemplating, like, am I ready for the next step? What were those signs that you saw?
So back when I was at Girl Scouts and Catholic Charities, I was not at the very top. And not that I feel like that's kind of the end all be all, but the times when a leader would make a decision, my inner thoughts would be if I was in disagreement, I would always say to myself, if I were president, and then I also say, also be careful what you ask for, because, it is not easy being a leader and having to make tough choices. Many times I don't envy the positions now looking back of what the decisions the leaders had to make. So, but I've always seen that I've been given a gift to lead well. People have always embraced my leadership. When that time came, it was like, wow, this is a really cool opportunity and I feel ready. I love to embrace challenges of all kinds. I think I know that that's where we grow is through challenges. I can be complacent and sit in a role and never really look for that opportunity to take the next step, but that's just not who I am. When that time came, it was intriguing, exciting, exhilarating, all of those emotions. It just felt that if it wasn't meant for me, it wasn't going to be for me. There would be many other candidates who had wonderful qualities that they would select over me. Thankfully, they chose me to be the executive director. So I think it's just always taking that leap of faith and really believing in yourself that you are possible of great things and it's trial and error. The important part is just as long as you learn along the way and you lead with humility. I think to me that's the most important aspect of a leader. You don't get anywhere by leading with pride.
That is so good. And I think I've had conversations with multiple colleagues and friends recently who are in similar spots where they were very comfortable in the roles that they were in. They felt secure in that they had all the skills, all the resources, all the tools necessary to fulfill the role they were in. And then they've been presented with some new opportunities. And I think they've had a lot of trepidation about taking that next step, and they're like, I haven't done XYZ about this role. I haven't done XYZ. And I think one thing that you said is really standing out to me, leading with humility, because if you don't have that trepidation, then you probably shouldn't step in. You probably shouldn't take that leap yet, because if you're feeling so confident and so sure of yourself that you think there's not going to be any challenges or any new things to learn, then lead in that capacity. Just the fact too that you were approaching it so carefully and really recognizing the weight that leadership carries. And obviously some of it you don't realize the full scope until you're fully sitting in it. But I was talking to a friend the other day and I just said, well, everyone is in a similar position where she's in a senior fund development role. And I said, every CEO was a CEO for the first time at some point. So at some point they've all been doing a function or in a setting or in a board meeting that they've never been in before. And you don't know until you know. I'm really curious, thinking through your first 90 days, your first year as ED with CASA, what was it like going from sitting on an executive team in a specific section of the organization to stepping in and being the decision maker?
It was a big change. For the first time, I didn't get to look to somebody to, provide an answer. It was me. It is me. It's the stopping point ends with me. And so I think that's one of the things that, again, going back to that space of like sometimes it is neat to be able to make a decision, but that other times it's heavy. You are responsible for everybody in the workplace. It's like you see those things that you read where you can make or break somebody's livelihood. To me, I don't take that lightly by any means, knowing that the rate at which we pay all of our team members, I mean, that's the way that they make a living. And if we don't provide promotions based upon feelings, then we've really stifled their growth opportunity. It's been a big shift. It's just not been easy by any means. It's been evenings of tears, lots of prayers, just trying to navigate well with other like-minded leaders who believe in servant leadership, which is the way I believe in leading. To me, you can't ask somebody who manages how to lead. They're two very different things. Finding people who serve like you do, and then, how do you do this well that cares for your well-being as a leader, but then also cares for everybody else's well-being, which then eventually will take care of the mission or the goals of the organization. I love to get my hands dirty. I love to be operational in the thick of things, but even more so behind the scenes. The people have been my biggest struggle, not because they're not amazing, because they all are. I don't get emotionally invested in things. When emotions arise, that's when I pull back. But you really have to insert yourself to be the calm in a storm or to lead with empathy and compassion when someone is stressed or feeling all sorts of things. It's just like, how can I help you be better today? And so, how do I fill your cup? And then in return, also looking to myself and making sure that my cup is full so that I can pour out to others.
That is so good, Ashley. I mean, I have always admired about you how cool, calm, and collected you are all the time. You know, you're so like you're so dependable of just like every time you interact, like I've interacted with you, I always know exactly who I'm getting. Even when something hasn't turned out as planned, you were always very cool, calm, and collected. I think it's really interesting that very often our greatest strengths also play into our greatest areas for improvement. It really speaks to hearing how you said leading through humility and even recognizing this is an area to pay attention to because my natural inclination when emotions come out is to pull back
Yeah.
and to disengage. When you're the ending point, you have to engage, come in, diffuse, understand the situation, and meet people where they are. Is there anything looking back and how you've grown since stepping into this role? Is there any advice you'd give yourself on day one, Ashley, in this role, sitting here now knowing what you know?
Yeah. It takes time. Change takes time. Good change takes time. When I stepped into this role, we had lost a lot of employees, and so many of them were new. Some of the things they experienced aren't the way that I run an organization. Many times they might not have been held accountable to certain things. I definitely was patient when I came in. I sat down with all of my team members to really learn who they were, how they like to be led, what were they hoping, in their time here at the organization. It wasn't fitting for everyone, and there were people that ended up leaving. I had 3 people leave in a period of 2 weeks, which for an organization of 12, that's 25% of your
Yeah.
workforce. So then it's like, okay, just start putting things in place to make sure that those areas of work are being taken care of. It was hard because I didn't want to be patient. I wanted to see change happen immediately. I wanted people to fix the way that they were approaching people or things or whatever it is, and that's also because I'm a type A, control freak at nature. And so it was just like, it was frustrating, but I was told some advice at the very beginning, and it's really hard to let it sink in, but I keep trying to remind myself messes do not happen overnight. Therefore, flipping it is not going to correct itself overnight. And so that's where I had to just work and be patient every single day. There are times I made mistakes. There were times that I just couldn't show up. There were times where I just really ached so deep down inside. It's like, I don't know that I want to return to the office. Um, but I knew I was here for a purpose. I know that I'm here to do something much greater than myself. And so those are the things that kept me coming back day in and day out, even when it felt icky. And so, my thing to encourage anyone, sometimes it's funny when you ask for patience and then you're given situations where there's the patience and you're like, wait, I didn't mean it that way. And just to be uh, apologetic to yourself. As long as you are looking to, if you make a mistake, how can you resurrect it? How can you be better next time? We're never striving for perfection because perfection isn't possible, but how can you be better tomorrow for the people that you serve and the organizational's mission that you have in front of you, and you'll make it. Everyone's timeline is different. Mine's taken nearly 2 years. Some people's takes more or shorter years, but as long as you can gauge every once in a while that there's progression in the right direction, you will get through it eventually. And it will be better than you could have ever imagined. And, I had a colleague, she was actually at the table when I was being interviewed. She works at the Coast and was in a position very similar to mine nearly 20 years ago. She said, Ashley, I've been in your same shoes. I don't envy you, but I can tell you that now I like showing up to work every day. What really touched my heart when you're in it and you don't see it, it's like, I think she's lying. I think she's fibbing. Here I am loving to show up to work, eager to work alongside my team. Today is Valentine's Day, and I asked everyone if I could pick up a Starbucks order for them, and I made little notes on the top of their cups just of how important they are to the organization and how loved and adored and amazing I think they are. And it's small acts of kindness like that that I feel like that just they know that I care. They know that I want them to succeed. And, just continuing to be mindful of their hearts to me. And really, the one thing I learned, and this was last year, I was doing strategic planning with Justice Shields from Crescent Leadership, who was just amazing. I realized it was like an epiphany of if I focus on the people, the work will happen naturally. I'd been working so hard to make the work work.
Mm.
But it's not about
Yeah.
the work. It's about the people. Once you get the people in a good spot, your people want to show up and they want to work well for the organization and do what's right by the leadership because you have their respect. I think that was just a big aha moment for me of like, wow, the very thing that I struggle with the most is the one thing that I have to lean into more intentionally in my work. So that's
So
how it's
good,
been.
Ashley. So good. My team has worked with Jess. We've gone to her retreats and we've all read her book. When I worked at Girl Scouts about 10 years ago, she was my COO. But even though sometimes we just need those reminders, that was so good. I'm sure we'll pull this quote out. When you focus on the work, then, you're really focusing on the like putting a band-aid when when you're hemorrhaging somewhere else. You really focus on your people, and then the work problems will be resolved because, like you said, it motivates everyone on the team to want to show up for work. They want to do a good job. Like you said, they want to do right for the leadership. That is so powerful. I needed reminders of that. I liked what you said too about, the messes aren't created overnight. They're not going to be fixed overnight. And as long as you're making some progress in the right direction. I was just on a call before this with a client who, overall, their campaign was tracking behind from last year. But part of the campaign, we just looked at the dashboard today, was tracking ahead. And I cannot tell you how much I respected, you saw the team, everyone's faces were really glum, right?
Mm.
Like they're kind of holding their breath a little bit because they're sitting with the CEO showing the progress, and it's not what they were hoping for. It's not what they need to make their budget. But there was one part that was ahead, and she did not focus on the fact that the campaign as a whole was tracking behind. She genuinely stopped the meeting and was like, "Are we not going to applaud that we are ahead in this area? This is awesome. We've got momentum. We're going to get it in other places." And she was like, "And I know that we're all doing the right things as much as we can do." And so that I saw everyone took a collective sigh of relief. The air filled the room again, and the whole tone of the meeting flipped on its head because she really focused on the win and the fact that even though we're not getting the desired outcome right now, I still recognize the team is doing everything they can do. I think that directly relates to exactly what you were saying, and put words to why I was so impressed with her in that meeting. I've seen her do that in other meetings as well, of just what makes leadership, even in tough times, so effective and keeps moving, the mission forward. I'd love to hear. I'll have two upcoming questions, and I always tell you what they are kind of back to back. I'm going to ask you, what are you proudest of in your time with CASA so far? And then if we come back in 5 years, what you hope we'll be talking about that your team has accomplished. So I'll ask the first question of, what are you proudest of in your time as ED so far?
Yeah. I would have to say I'm proud of our team. Our team has been through a lot. For the ones that are still here since I've been here, I hired back a few staff members who had been with CASA prior to me being here. They had endured some stuff too. We've been through a lot to get where we're at. Change isn't just with me, right? It's with each individual person. I can't take credit for what's been done. It's truly been a team effort. And so for that, that's what I'm most proud of, is because I could not do what I do if I did not have the team that I have. And so I'm thankful and blessed by them. Your second question was, where do I see CASA in 5 years?
If we were to sit and set a calendar date 5 years from today, What do you hope that we're talking about that when I ask you, what have you guys accomplished in the last 5 years? What would that be?
So, part of our strategic plan that we worked on last year, I'm very visionary. That's just really how I operate. We had solicited feedback from our board and our staff and collectively put all of our thoughts together. But the one thing that I knew I wanted to do is that I wanted it to be bigger than ourselves. So obviously, what makes the most sense is continuing to recruit advocates that advocate for children and youth in foster care for their best interests and creating impact. I want to be an advocate for the system. I want to change the way that we serve our kids in our communities. I want it to be pivotal. I became an active CASA myself just this past August. I wanted to do it to understand our work a little bit better. And so I'm walking along two teenagers, ages 14 and 16, and it hasn't been easy. But I finally have gotten to see the system for what it is. I don't blame any one person. I don't blame any one organization. I believe our system is inundated with serving our families, but we're treating families like case numbers and not like people and humans. Nothing sustainable happens with just band-aids. Our kids have trauma beyond trauma beyond trauma. And I mean, I lived a relatively good life, had a great upbringing, but I still had my own trauma of some sorts from various things. And I had to work through those. So I can't even imagine. I have never been into a system of care. I've never been placed from home to home. I've never had different people walk in and out of me. You hear about kids that are abused and neglected, and I can't even begin to tell you, nor do I want to tell you of the stories that I've learned about of children that we serve. And so to think that we can give them some medication, send them to a therapist once a month that they don't really know is just not, it's not realistic. It's going to take a lot more work to better serve these kids. That's where I believe our advocates, it's a constant individual in their life, digging deep, creating a friendship through those things. That's where trauma heals itself because they're encouraged to believe that they are something bigger than they believe in themselves. I hear of success stories of people that walked alongside when they didn't have to. They showed up to say that they cared. They showed up to say, I believe in you and I want something greater for you. An organization that serves 10% of our children in foster care. I need more advocates so desperately. It's got to be something bigger than just what we can do here locally as an organization. 5 years from now, I hope that the system is better equipped to serve our kids. If not, we're going to have more kids who are homeless, more kids in prison, more kids not graduating from high school. They are our future. We got to do a better job of taking care of them. And so that's what I hope CASA of Kern County is an advocate in that space of just creating a better system of care for all.
I can see how deeply connected you are to the mission. I have to imagine too that I would think that your whole team, it's a very similar experience of, and that's what keeps, the team and the mission going through so many challenges that nonprofits have been facing forever, especially since COVID and so many changes with the economy. I absolutely love the mission of your organization. I cannot wait to circle back in a year or 5 years and see where CASA is at. I think it would be important for our audience to understand if they want to get connected with CASA, whether they are in Kern County, outside of Kern County, across the country, if they're feeling really connected with the mission and what you're doing. What are some ways that folks can get involved and how can they find you?
Yeah, there's CASA programs all through our country. I'd love for everyone to join us in the mission. Their local programs need your listeners. I would encourage them to connect with their local CASA program and figure out ways that they can get involved, whether that be monetarily through some office support. All of us have fundraisers and or being an advocate, and it does take some intense training, but we try to prepare you as much as possible for your journey, which is not easy but so worthwhile. People can connect with us at kerncasa.org. As I mentioned, any CASA program is hungry for volunteers. It's not like going and building a food box, right? You just don't show up one time or, once a month and put stuff in a paper bag. It really is time and a commitment. But I truly believe that we are responsible for all of our children in our community. If you can advocate and ever get frustrated with the work, please feel free to call me. I will try to encourage you because, again, it's not easy, but it is so worthwhile. And to think that, you know, these kids will feel love in a way that they've never felt before, that will resurrect the love that they felt when they were younger, when maybe life was a little bit better at home. It's really all that I can ask. Just thankful for this opportunity to educate your listeners about CASA. Not a lot of people are aware of it, but they don't understand truly the work. It's always a pleasure to talk about the mission of the organization and ask for more help.
I did not realize that CASA was so widespread across the United States. I would encourage, especially if you're a nonprofit professional, I think it's sometimes it's really easy to stay in our lane of the current org we're working in. And I can't encourage enough that even if you're working in a different org, one of the best ways to get re-energized around your own mission is to find another nonprofit, volunteer, and invest in the board. Sometimes I think we get so focused on the organization we're working in that we forget what drew us there. We are advocates who care. And that's the reason we're not somewhere else making a lot more money. We really want mission centric work. And then sometimes you have to, especially when you're feeling some of that burnout in your own org, it can help kind of reignite the fire for the work of your own org when you spend some time, whether it's serving on a board or volunteering with another organization, specifically if you're feeling really led to a particular cause. So I would just encourage, I know we have a lot of nonprofit professionals that listen. Ashley gave incredible professional advice, but also if you find yourself resonating with the mission of a nonprofit in your city. I can't encourage you enough of like what it's done for me of, spending time with other nonprofits. And two, it'll give you great insight into how to better serve your volunteers, how to better support your board members for success by actually being a board member yourself or being a volunteer yourself. Everything that Ashley mentioned will be in our show notes today. It'll all be linked below. Ashley, I appreciate you so much joining us.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it's such a delight to have been asked. And thank you for allowing me to share my journey and encourage somebody in their leadership.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Business Per Usual show. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback helps us reach more entrepreneurs and professionals like you. To stay up to date on the latest episodes and get exclusive bonus content, follow us on social at Taylor Brand Consulting and visit our website at www.taylorbrandconsulting.com. I am Michelle Taylor, and until next time, stay innovative, stay inspired, and keep pushing forward.